Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Power of Perception Twitter account and the Golden Opportunities Coaching channel that you're listening to right now. If you're new here, please rate, subscribe, and comment below. Each day we have an audio that is about 15 minutes in length, covering a topic of the day and from the coaching perspective. So, one thing that I work with people on almost every day is the issue of compatibility. What is it? How do I know if I have it? How do I find it if I feel out of balance? These are usually very useful questions and things that people think about when they're starting a new phase, but forget when they're in the middle of a relationship or a job or a certain belief system that they often kind of shut off their brain and go into autopilot, which is actually how the brain's designed. So it's not like you're doing anything wrong per se. It's more that the brain goes into the habitual status whenever we think we have something handled. And then, even if our circumstances aren't aligning with what we want out of life, we forget to check, am I still compatible with this person? Am I still compatible with this situation? Are my beliefs still compatible with what another person is doing, saying, or how they're behaving? Usually what happens is the answer is no, but we hold ourselves in this abeyance place where we believe that, okay, they'll come back to themselves. They'll go back to the way that they used to be. And then what begins to happen is we start to go, okay, what can I do to make them come back to where they used to be? What can I do to make them behave differently? Or how can I respond differently to them to cause people's behavior to change? Change happens for one of two reasons. It's important if you're struggling in a relational situation or even a professional one where you may not be compatible with your environment or the persons that you're dealing with any longer to look at the realities of change. Change happens out of desperation. I am desperate to avoid a worse circumstance. Or desire. I desire a better circumstance or a better relationship with myself first and then with others second. If desperation or desire is not at the center of the motivating factor for a person who's trying to make a change, they'll make a lip service change, in other words, a short-term one. They'll be good for about a few days to a week, maybe at most a month, and then they'll go back to their habitual behaviors. The reason being is there's no internal commitment to change. Now, compatibility is all about finding a way to go, this person has the same worldview that I do, has the same view of progress that I do, and desires some of or many of the same things that I do. When a person has that in common, they are then compatible. Now, common interest, and here's where people get stuck. Common interest or attraction does not necessarily mean compatibility. Or even if one says, hey, I want to be in a relationship, or hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this job, or hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this opportunity, it doesn't mean it's compatible with your values, with your vision, with the energy you want to put in. A compatible partner or compatible situation will give as much or close to equal to you as you are giving to it. It will strengthen you at the core of your being because it's adding to your life. When you are compatible with another person, they add to you and you add to them, and you are inspired to add to them because they add to you. It's also about the levels of love, and various people from Abraham Maslow to Tony Robbins to I think Jim Rohn spoke about this, but basically the levels of love are also important here too. And that is, if you are loving at a level that's mutually beneficial, it will be, I trust that this other person is going to be at my level of investment or close to it because they've shown it before and because I trust in their vision and my vision being compatible. Most often, though, what happens when in a loving situation is a person has expectations, a person has certain ways that are going to make them happy, and they change to make the other person happy with the habitual unconscious thought or habit thought that if I change, this person will change too because I sacrifice for them. And very rarely does that work, because if a person doesn't have the same mindset, the same worldview as you do, they're looking and going, hey, I got this person to think my way. I got this person to behave my way. They get me. They get where I'm coming from. And thus, they think they have, quote, won, unquote, and that you have changed for their benefit and they no longer have to do any work. This is where unbalanced relationships often come from. It's not because there wasn't at some level the perception of love, which true love, universal love, which comes from a compatible place, is unconditional acceptance. And that's where many people struggle. It's the unconditional part. Very few ever get to a place where the love that they give is truly unconditional, because we are not taught as a global society to love without condition. We love based on how we feel rather than it being a choice that creates a feeling. When you make a choice to love a person, it is because you see in them the option to unconditionally give them acceptance, and you see their ability to do same. Now, unfortunately, when emotions start to get in play, also too does the wonderful and not so wonderful nature of habitual behaviors and chemical reactions in the brain. In other words, we almost get addicted to the feeling of being in love with a person, with a situation, with a job, and not actually, we stop thinking, we stop actively processing whether this thing, this person, this situation is in our highest good and compatible with where we want to go. The action of becoming is also important here. Meaning, and looking at it from the level of, if you are still breathing, and I assume if you're listening to this you are, if you're not, you might want to avail yourself of a medical professional. But anyhow, if you're not breathing, I don't think you can hear me. Regardless, if you are still breathing, that means your preferences and your desires have the ability and often will evolve. Now, the question becomes, are you looking at that evolution as it relates to the people in your life, as it relates to your goals for relationship, your goals for professionalism, your goals for sense of purpose, your goals for your school environment, your home environment, your work environment, your social environment? Or are you dialing it in and living on autopilot? A person with whom you're compatible is going to push you to be the best version of yourself that's possible as often as possible, because they will realize, they will understand you at your best brings out the best in them because they raised to meet you. Life is about growth, and when something stops growing, be it a relationship, be it a professional opportunity, be it a person's beliefs, be it a person's knowledge, it starts to die. And so what happens is when something begins to die from the inside out, we get really nostalgic for this idea, this concept that says, I can go back in time and feel the way I used to feel. I can go back in time and make it the way it used to be. And oftentimes we also do the over-promising thing. Now that usually plays itself out like this. I promised to be by this person no matter what happened. I promised to love this person no matter what happened. I promised to be with them in a relationship, or I promised to take care of them, or I promised to work with them on this project, or I promised whatever it is. And I overpromised because I can't promise forever all the time, because I don't know how I'm going to grow. Now, what one should say if they're looking for a compatible relationship is, I promise to engage in the process of getting to know and grow with you, and I promise to respond and react from the place of that growth in the best interest of both of us. Now, nearly that doesn't sound that romantic, but it is a keepable commitment, and that's the thing. Most often, especially with younger people, especially with people under, let's say, the age of 25, the concept of forever is so elusive. It's been romanticized in our Hollywoodization of what a relationship should be, and it doesn't factor in that we are evolutionary beings. We're ever growing, and our preferences are ever growing too. And so if a person doesn't have the same preference with you, but they support you in your development and growth of preferences, they support you in your development as a person, they can be compatible. But if a person takes you out of alignment, here's how you're going to know. When you begin to doubt your judgment, when you begin to doubt if something is good for you as a person to continue to engage in, Immediately, at that moment where the doubt first begins, you are out of alignment with this interest being in your best interest as a person, with this situation being in your best interest as a person. You completely become out of alignment because, not because you have failed, not because the person's emotions towards you have changed. Many times, the emotions are just indicators with how in alignment a person is. If you're in a place where you can finish their sentences, or you're in a place where you can know what they're going to do or how they're going to move or how they're going to say, that means you're greatly in alignment with where they are in that given moment. But the more discord that exists within a person, the more discord will exist in their relational status. The more discord that's in a person, the more they will push against things that bring to their mind the need to get back into alignment within themselves. Now, why does that happen? That happens because we all know what it is to be completely in alignment with something that feels good, with something that's growing, with something that's expanding, and we also know what it's like to cut ourselves off from growth. What happens is people that think they are compatible don't look at growth as a metric that needs to be measured as it relates to the continuance of a relationship. But here's the thing. Whether the relationship is 2 months old, 2 years old, 20 years old, or a lifetime commitment, the minute growth stops between two people, the compatibility is gone. What you used to have may still exist in memory, but it is not an active part of your experience. And when it's not a part of your active experience, there's two things you've got to do. Either the person who's out of alignment within themselves has to come to a greater understanding of what's going to make them happy, fulfilled, focused, and overall looking for a greater sense of personal purpose, or they have to understand that the relationship itself has changed form, has grown in a different direction. The lesson or the experience has been learned. It's kind of like saying if a relationship is like an orange, if you've gotten all the juice out of that orange, to say you're going to make fresh orange juice, if you've gotten all that juice out of the orange, you can sit there and squeeze the pulp and squeeze the pulp, but there's no more juice coming out. Why? Because you've extracted all you can from the orange. And most often people don't realize that there are relational experiences in life where you've extracted all you can out of how you're growing together. It doesn't mean that anyone failed. It does not mean that you're unlovable or that in some way you need to change or alter yourself. It means your preferences have changed, your needs portfolio has changed, and either the other person, the other party, the other situation needs to realign to where it can be mutually beneficial again, in which case that means they have to be willing to change, and or it means your needs have changed to the point where that person must change form in your life. In other words, the reason they're there must be altered, otherwise you're just going to bang your head against a wall. Most often, people in toxic relationships are individuals who do not believe or receive the need for evolution from both parties to remain in a healthy relationship. In other words, the belief is, I will change, then they will change, rather than we both are changing already, and we have to look at where we intersect and whether that is enough to sustain continuance in the relationship. It's sad because there's so many people who know what it is to be happy, but they pin upon another person or a situation the definition of their happiness rather than realizing, as we've spoken of in other audios, that all happiness or all emotions are choices of either gratitude, a positive emotion, the need to stay present moment minded, or refocusing and change in perception for a negative emotion. A positive emotion, once again, is the reminder to stop and have gratitude and understanding for that which is continuing to positively grow. A negative emotion every time is an invitation to change something. Your focus, the meaning you've given to a situation, person, or circumstance, the actions you're taking, your perception of events, the questions you're asking. But every time, 100% of the time, a negative emotion is an invitation to change. So if you're struggling in a relationship or a situation that isn't working for you, The big question is, what do I need to change to get back to feeling more positive, more progressive, more in alignment with things that do harm to no one, including myself? Until next time, this has been Scott Golden with Golden Opportunities Coaching, reminding you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Once again, subscribe, rate, and comment below if you'd like a future video, and join us on Twitter at PO Perception for daily motivation.